Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. Hope you're having a good Thursday. It's another week towards fall. Getting colder. Not great here. But we're going to keep plugging along, playing some golf. But before we get into today's episode, just want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Titleist and the brand new Pro V1X golf balls. For the best in the world, the goal is to improve every day. Same goes for all of us, dedicated to this game. And it starts with choosing the golf ball you can trust. The Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X have set the standard for performance, and now they just got better again. Both models are engineered with high gradient core technology that delivers lower long game spin for more distance and more consistent flight. And of course, you can expect that trusted drop and stop greenside control, so important to shooting lower scores. Pro V1 is the best combination of distance, spin, and feel in the game and delivers a penetrating flight, where the Pro V1X flies higher, spins more in the short game, while still giving you low spin on longer shots to maximize your distance. Outperform your best. Learn more about the new Pro V1 and Pro V1X at Titleist.com. So check out the Pro V1, Pro V1X. I know it's one of those still playing the Pro V1X. Still my ball. Still the one I use. I pepper in there a couple Pro V1s here and there, but the Pro V1X is still my go-to. So hopefully, you're having a great week. I just been a busy week here. Just celebrated my daughter's birthday, so she turned 4. Pretty crazy that this 4 years has flown by. Absolutely insane. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anybody who's a father out there probably knows exactly what I'm talking about, how fast things go. If you are not, or about to be, or planning on being someday in life, just know that things fly by at a pace that you will never expect and enjoy every little bit along the way, because it seems like just yesterday, we were putting her down in a crib and, she was a baby and doing all these things. And now, the independence at even 4 years old is just different. It just flies. It's crazy. So, but yeah, we had a good time there, and now we're back into the week. So Thursday, this is a Wednesday night, so Thursday, another week, and played a little golf over the weekend, which was fun. Went out with a couple guys that I go to my big golf outing with, 3 guys there. Went out and played with them on Sunday, and had a good time. I played really poorly. I drove the ball really well, and then I actually putted pretty well, and other than that, it was pretty much me just scrambling around. The iron game was just brutal. So I'm trying to think what I had the Callaways out with me. That one I took the Apex Pro combo set, and I really like those. They're really really good. But I struggled with everything. It was just a rough go, and it was other than driver and putting, and the two clubs there that I did really well with were, I took out the Graphite Design VR, the new VR, the Tour AD VR, VR6X, and had that in. I pulled out the old TaylorMade Stealth 2 Plus head that I hadn't hit in a while, my custom colored one, the one that's white gold with the purple face. Took that out, and I was killing that thing. That thing was really good. I hit some really good shots with that. I also brought out the Strixon ZX5 LS and hit that, and hit some really good balls with that, and just drove it really good. We went and played a course called Sycamore Hills, which is over kind of north of Detroit, but on kind of the east side, and it's interesting because it's an interesting little course to lay out. Got a handful of dog legs. Some of the holes get really tight. Other ones aren't. Some of it's in some trees. Some of it's not. But it's not a bad layout. They have 3 9s there. And it's right now in pretty good shape. And the leaves weren't too bad, other than a couple holes that were kind of cut in and out of the woods. Those had a good amount of leaves on them. But other than that, it wasn't bad at all for finding your ball. Because that's one thing up here in Michigan, and I would bet a lot of the northern courses across the country, as soon as fall hits like now, you go out there and you could even hit a good ball in the middle of the fairway, and there's so many leaves and stuff out there, you just never find it. And I had trouble finding one ball. I hit one. It was kind of this dogleg right hole, and I hit it I hit a good shot. I just pulled it a little bit left, and it went into the trees around, with the dog leg, and it took me a little bit to find it, but I found it. It was in a terrible spot, like directly behind a tree, but did find it. It just took a little bit of looking, but we really didn't have all four of us didn't really have too much issue going. We teed off at 7:45 in the morning, and it was cold. It was light enough you could see. It wasn't bad there. It was, you probably couldn't play much before 7:30, but 7:45 we were good. Walked out there, you could play, and started teeing off. But man, it was like it had to be 45 degrees when we teed off, and it was windy, so it was chilly. And I just never got warm from that point on, and that might have been part of not hitting it well, but drove it really good, and then I putted really well, and I had the Spider, the TaylorMade Spider Tour V that I've been really liking so far. I've been putting well with that, and of course when you're putting well with it, you rip the shaft out. So I ripped the shaft out of that, and I just glued up a UST all-in putter shaft, so the one with the steel tip, graphite top section, and I've got a Super Stroke Zenergy Pistol 2.0 on there that I kind of like the feel of. The 2.0 is just a little big, and I've got a Pistol 1.0, the old Traction. So I've got a Traction 1.0 that I've got laying around. That I like the 1.0. I have that same grip on my Bettinardi. So I'm like, but I mean, the Zenergy 2.0 pistol on there is like brand new. I mean, I basically put it on to test with it, and I did a review on it, and that was it. So I mean, it's got like little to almost no use on it. So it's like, do I cut off a perfectly good grip and put on a different one, or do I just try with the 2.0? So I've been putting around down here with the 2.0 on it, and it's not too bad. I do have to say, I'll probably run with it for a little while, run the 2.0 for a little while, and then if things change or whatever, I have that 1.0 still to throw on. So I'll probably do that and go. But I didn't mind the steel shaft that was in it. I mean, that KBS steel shaft was really good. But I like that stiffer feel, these new graphite multi-material type shafts that just feel a little stable. And down here so far, I've really liked the feel of it, so far. So I think it's a good upgrade, and I'll be getting that thing out in the course to mess around with and see how that goes. But man, that putter's, I mean, I know people they love or hate TaylorMade Spider putters. I'm really liking that putter. I'm just finding that I'm hitting the center of the face a lot, where I know some of my other mallets, I was kind of finding the toe a lot of my strokes, just finding the toe. Same thing a little bit with the Bettinardi. And this one is, it's got the slant neck, so it's still got a little toe hanging to it. But I've been definitely making much better contact in the center of the club face more with this thing than a lot of other putters. So putted really well with it. I didn't make anything crazy. I made a couple decent putts, but nothing like, I wasn't dropping 30-foot bombs or anything like that. But I wasn't missing by a whole lot either. I mean, every putt was just, either right by the hole or, just, either left just short or just beyond. I mean, everything was really close, like basically tap in putts. Even like a lot of my lag putting has been better with that putter, which is one thing putting wise that I've really struggled with this year was lag putting. I didn't practice at all, and it seemed like if I had a putt that was, a 20, 30 foot or something across the green, or I was in front and the pin was all the way in the back or whatever, I just really struggled getting that distance down, and it's been better with that putter. So so far, I won't say that it's necessarily taken over number one spot, but it is moving up the rotation pretty quick. And I look over at the bag of kind of gamer putters that go through the rotation every week, and it's beating out a lot of those there, which is pretty interesting. But really liking that putter a lot so far. And then driver wise, that VF shaft, I'm really liking it. I do set usually whatever driver I do set it like just like a slight notch up in loft, just so I can, ensure that I'm hitting it high enough. But so far that's been working. The nice thing too is with the TaylorMade heads, you can actually set those things up a little bit in loft and they don't look shut, which I absolutely love. It seems like every other company, if you turn up that loft, just even that like 0.75 degrees or whatever it is, the face just looks, extremely shut. And that those TaylorMade heads, and I don't think it's the way they're shaped. I think it's the way they paint the top lines. That they almost look open all the time. And then if you can raise it, they look square. And it's just been really, really solid. So I've been running pretty much everything that I put that VF head in for the most part. I've raised. I think the TS2 I left it standard and just left that one standard. But everything else I've pretty much shut the face a little bit, or raised the loft just a little bit. And it's been really good. I've been hitting some good, really straight shots of that thing. It feels good. But a really solid driver shaft, and it's been working in a couple different heads. So be interesting to see that. I don't know that it's necessarily longer than TR Blue, though. Like if I put TSR2 with TR Blue, I still think that's kind of my longest and most consistent combo. But man, the VF is really, really close. And I think, honestly, if I could get like an 11-degree head instead of a 10 and put that VF and go against the TR, I think it would be a pretty interesting battle. So we'll see how that goes, but so far those have been really solid. And then, everything else has just kind of been the same. I mean, the pink 7-wood has been the G430 Max 7-wood with the TR Blue 8 stiff. Tipped a little extra bit. Has been just an animal. I haven't even wanted to put another hybrid in. And I know I talked early in the year about going back to hybrids and, because I hit them off the tee so much and stuff like that. But I feel like I've gotten pretty comfortable hitting balls off the tee with that 7-wood, and then off the turf. I hit it a bunch at Sycamore Hills. It wasn't so much distancing; it was just the wind. It was blowing hard, and it was easily 2 clubs. And there was a par 3 that was 207 yards. So I hit that thing, and had a couple shots out of the off the turf that I wasn't hitting 3-wood well. So I would hit the 7-wood. And I hit that thing really solid. And I guess there you go. I hit 3 clubs well. I hit driver, putter, and I hit the 7-wood well. Other than that, everything else was a little bit of a struggle. But that club's been really consistent and kind of locked into the bag. That'll probably stay for next year. I mean, I just don't see where something else would knock it out. But again, you never know. I thought the PXG was going to stay in the bag. That 7 was going to stay in the bag all this year, and it didn't. So we'll see how that goes. But I was out there hitting something new, hitting some new product, and what I was hitting was some new wedges. And I've been messing around with wedges all year. I feel like nothing wedge wise has been like. It's kind of been like the honeymoon phase. Like you run through the honeymoon phase, and you put something in the bag, you hit it pretty well for 18 holes, and then the next 18 you struggle with it, and then you swap it out and you hit something really well for the 18, and then you struggle with it. So I've been kind of up and down with different wedges all year. And the only thing I feel like I've kind of dialed in is the 50 degree, which is that Cleveland RTX 6 zip core. That one in the 50 has done really well. And I feel like I'm narrowing in. I think the 60 could be the MG4, the milled grind 4 Tiger Woods 60. I've hit that thing really well, and I kind of like the way the sole's designed on that. It gets through the turf pretty well. So that could be the 60. 56 right now is a little iffy. It could be the Mizuno T24. I could have just some random wedge setup, but hey, it's all what works. It's just getting what works in your bag. But I was messing around with a set of the new. Well, they're still pretty dirty from playing them. The new Edison 2.0 wedges. So if you're not familiar with Edison Golf, Terry Koehler is the guy who is behind Edison Golf there, and basically he's been designing clubs for 30 years, something like that. Really, really long time club designer. He's got a lot of great products under his belt, and he basically started doing his own thing. So that I remember the first set of wedges I never really hit. I think I chipped around with a first set of wedges when they first came out. They sent a set in, and then I think somebody in the office snagged them, and I never saw them again. So somebody else played them for a while, but the 2.0 is kind of the new revised version, and it's a pretty nice looking design. It is a forged wedge, and the big thing we see behind Edison is they're a big proponent of moving that CG up high in the head, and moving that CG basically up to where Terry Koehler feels like through all his research, where most amateurs hit the club. That they hit their contact patch is more in the center of the club. So traditional wedges, the CG was really low, it was hard to get up high, and the sweet spot was much lower than where people made most of their contacts. So moving that CG up helps get that sweet spot in the right spot. And then it also creates kind of a more penetrating ball flight that spins a lot. And that was his whole thing with these. So, and then also, technology-wise, he's got his Koehler sole, which is kind of a multi-beveled, multi-bounce kind of sole. So he's got a lot of technology running in there. And then these things are forged wedges. So they are forged, and I know a lot of people talk about forged wedges and all that. Not many of them are. Most of the wedges, most of the big brands, all the stuff you see are all cast wedges, but these are forged, and the faces, of course, are all milled, and they've got some aggressive grooves on here as well. Overall, good-looking wedges. When you set them down, they've got a slightly unique look. They've got a little more of a rounder leading edge on them. When you go down from hosel into the leading edge, it's got a little roundness to that. A lot of times, though, that helps with getting through the rough, and when you open the face a little bit, it can help with that as well. And then the shape overall, they're pretty decent size. They're decent wedges. I wouldn't say they're crazy compact. I'd say they're a good medium size. They're a little more rounded, especially out near the toe. They don't have really sharp, harsh angles, anything like that. A little more rounder, a little softer. And then, when you look at the sole there, you can tell the leading edge definitely has an angle to it. And then the trailing edge, the back half of the sole, all kind of either goes flat or almost up. And the sole width is fairly narrow compared to a lot of other wedges. I would say it's a hair bit narrower. I haven't really thrown calipers on this compared to a Vokey or anything, but they definitely have a little. They're definitely not a wide-soled wedge. Even the 50 and the 50 and the 60. So I've had all three. So I had they're labeled on the bottom. 51, 55, 59 is how they're labeled. And then if you want, a 50, 54, 60 or 54, 58, whatever, they basically bend an odd numbered wedge. They bend it weak to that specific, so if you wanted a 56 like this one is, it says 55 on the bottom, it's bent 1 week. So yes, it adds a degree of bounce, but it also takes away just a hair of offset. And then it's a 56 degree. So everything's going to have an odd number on the sole, but you can order them pretty much any way you want. And they've got the nice little black and gold ferrule on there, so they do kind of a nice job with something custom. And then you see, the Koehler kind of signature on there as well. These things are, like I said, forged before. They say 5 times forged, and I know a lot of people, in terms of forging, talk about, it's 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, whatever. Most of the time when they're talking about forging like that, it is basically getting everything shaped correctly. The more times you hit it, the more precise you can get kind of the shaping and the design. And on the back of these things here, they definitely have a little bit more of a unique look to them as opposed to a traditional wedge. So traditional wedge, you have kind of a thin upper section, and then it kind of goes into kind of a fatter sole and muscle. This here, it kind of spreads all that out. And, Terry basically says there's about 42% of the mass is up higher on the head. So pretty interesting design philosophy, pretty interesting setup. I don't doubt Terry has got some data to back all this stuff up, because he's been doing this for a long time. So it's a good looking wedge, and overall really nice looking. And they have ways you can order just individuals, you can order sets. You can kind of do that whole thing. I think they have 2 wedge sets, 3 wedge sets, 4 wedge sets, depending on what you're looking to do there. And they've got a nice little wedge fitting app on the website as well, where you can jump on there and build your own or do your own wedges and see how your gapping works and things like that. So that is pretty cool. And then also the nice thing too is that Terry will sell you heads only. So if you got shafts that you like at home, you can get heads only on their website as well, which is pretty awesome. So really cool design, really unique kind of perspective looking at these wedges. And overall, the nice thing is when you set them down from playing position, they just look like a wedge. Like you set it down and it just looks like a regular wedge. The 55 and the 59 which 56, 60 for me, especially just look like really traditional wedges. They really don't have a whole lot, of difference to them. You don't see a whole lot. They've got a nice satin kind of finish, no glare or anything like that. But they look traditional. The 51's got it does to me look just a hair stretched out from heel to toe, and the leading edge is a little more rounded than I like in a 50 degree, but it's still a good looking wedge there, and they all blend in the set really, really nicely. And honestly, they blended up with those Callaways really, really well also, because that matte finish that they have kind of matched the satin finish here. So overall, just a good looking wedge when you set it down. Not too much offset, anything like that. Some people would maybe look at the top line and say, hey, it's a hair thick, but I barely notice it. I think I notice it more now here looking at it when I'm looking for things to describe the wedge on a podcast. The top line's a little thicker. When I'm out playing, never noticed it. It just looked pretty traditional to me. So overall looks and everything are really good. These things were built up with KBS Tour 120 stiffs and some Lambkin crossline grips. That's just kind of one of the stock options. And just an overall really solid wedge. So looks and everything really good. I like that Terry does, and he's passionate about it. So he's got a ton of tech and a ton of interesting stuff on his website. But stuff like in terms of technology, and they've got these milled faces with micro grooves and everything that most brand new kind of wedges have. But he even kind of states that it's more about the CG placement and all that will create more spin compared to bigger, sharper grooves or crazy milling or anything like that. A lot of their face milling is just for consistency, so that way it's always flat. You're going to get consistent launch, even if you're not dead set center every single swing. But so we'll get them on the course, and they actually play really, really well. I will say that this Koehler sole, with this kind of dual design with the kind of beveled front leading edge, and then it's kind of this trailing edge with it. On on shots that are square, like full shots of the 51, it gets through the turf. It might get through the turf faster than most wedges I've ever hit, especially ones with a decent amount of bounce. Like there's some low bounce stuff that gets through the turf pretty fast, but these hit and they get through the turf really, really quick. They actually take a slightly bigger divot than some of the higher bounce stuff that I've been playing this year. But they just glide through the turf. I mean, it's just like kind of a knife through, warm knife through butter. They just kind of slide through the turf. And, especially playing the past couple weeks where there's been some rain and stuff has been really, really soft. They've taken some decent size, some divots. But once that wedge hits the ball and then gets into the turf, it just gets through quick and exits really, really fast. I was really shocked on how that happened, especially the first couple of shots I hit with them were just kind of like 50-yard, little kind of like, pitch shots. They were just, hit good drives and things like that. Didn't have a whole lot in, and just, wasn't hitting full shots yet with them. Just hadn't had that. And those little shots there, I mean, you could kind of get it into the turf, and as that leading edge hit with that little bevel on it, I mean, it just hit the turf and kind of glided through, and that little trailing edge kind of relief as they put on there, that kind of V-solish look, just exited really, really fast. So it was really kind of interesting that almost every shot, because as you moved up and we're hitting full shots at the 51, same thing. Notice that this thing just got through the turf really, really quick. And then even little short shots around the green. If you were just off, chipping and things like that. The first couple I actually hit kind of like 10 feet by the hole. Because and I actually made really good contact, hit it like dead center. I think I was just expecting the club to kind of grab a little bit in the turf, like some of the higher bounce stuff I play. And it just kind of hit the turf and just slid and, made good contact. It was dead center of the club face. Ball just kind of took off because I just carried a little more speed than I thought I would carry into that shot. But the sole really works well. As I said, it digs maybe just a hair more than some of the other high bounce stuff I've played. Some of the full sole wedges that I typically play, especially in the 56 where I can get the steepest. I get a little steep in the 50 as well. But both those, they weren't bad. They weren't near as diggy as some stuff I've hit before, some of the lower bounce stuff. But they did take a slightly bigger divot than some of the higher bounced wedges. But even with the bigger divot, got through really, really quick. So the 51 was with full shots, and then those kind of little chip shots around the green was really good. It really consistent spin, and full shots. Terry's right. The ball comes out just a little bit flat. It just comes out. You almost feel like you didn't hit it as great. Like, oh man, I didn't catch it great, or I hit it a little thin, or I got the hands in front of the club head a little bit and hit it low. But it just comes out with a little bit more boring trajectory. It still gets high. It still goes up in the air. And when it hits, they check up pretty hard. There's something to be said about the design and still carrying a lot of spin, because on full shots with that gap wedge, you would hit some shots that still got up in the air. They'd hit the green, and the release would be very minimal, if at all. I felt like St. Clair Shores and Sycamore Hills, where I played, both places I felt kind of like the greens weren't crazy hard. It was you were always getting a little bit release. Maybe you'd hit and stop on some fuller shots, but nothing was really checking up super hard. So playing these compared to standard wedges on those same courses of where I hit stuff, they performed really well. And there was a couple shots especially with the 56, where had that little 30-40 yard shot off the green and just had to kind of get it on and let it release, and a bunch of those came up short. They just checked up harder than I thought, and you do have to maybe carry the ball a little further on those shots than you do maybe with a traditional wedge. But full shots of the 50 with the gap wedge, again, came out flat. They held the green really well. The distance control solid, and the feel on the full shots is pretty good. Being a forged wedge, it definitely is soft. It's got a hair more audible, I want to call it a click, but it's probably the lowest pitch and lowest sounding click I've ever heard. It's almost like a knock, it's just got that kind of a low thud when you hit it, but it's got just a hair of click to it that I can't describe. It's just a little bit different. Like I said, kind of like a knock. And I know that doesn't, when you say a knock, it sounds bad. It's definitely not. It's just got a touch of a sound to it. But the feel is good. It's very responsive. When you hit it in the center, you did. It's got that softness to it. When you miss it off the face, it'll give you just that little bit of vibration more. Definitely way less harsh than some other wedges if you miss it kind of low in the face or out on the toe or stuff like that. So those parts, those there are a little nicer to the hands, even on a cold morning. When I think the first wedge I hit, I think I hit the 50 on the first hole and just caught it thin, and I was expecting my hands to just rattle like crazy. And they didn't, and the ball came up, actually got to the back of the green, went a little hot, but it wasn't too bad of a shot, and the responsiveness, the vibration was kind of held in check, which is nice. But the 50 on full shots were really solid. I mean, honestly, you won't really notice a huge difference with it. You'll notice the ball, the trajectory comes out maybe just a little bit flatter, a little bit lower, but the distance control is really good. And then the 50, which I use most of the time around the green on just little, just off the green type shots. As I said, the first one or two, the club just got through the turf really quick, and I hit the ball kind of, beyond the hole a little bit by 5 to 10 feet. But it was as soon as I kind of realized that's how the turf interaction was, those shots became really easy, and I actually had a lot of confidence in them right out of the gate. That you knew you could kind of get the soul of this club onto the turf, hit that ball solid, and you didn't have to worry about it catching or dragging or anything like that. It just got through really quickly. So the 50, the gap wedge, worked really well for me on full shots, and then those little chips, and that's all about I use it for. I don't use it for pretty much anything else like that. My gap wedge is those two shots, and that's it. I mean, I guess if I had a crazy long bunker shot, I'd play it out of there, but that's pretty rare when that comes up. And then you move into the 56 or the 55 for me, or 56, 55 bend to 56. You move into that, which is kind of the club that I use the most around the green, whether it's little, chip shots, pitch shots, and then I use it out to just about 80 yards, 85 at the most, depending on the wind. I don't really love taking full shots with a sand wedge, but much like the gap wedge, turf interaction is quick, it's fast, digs a hair more than some other high bounce options, but again, it's not holding the club up in any way. It still gets through really quickly. Spin on these, again, really good, especially off tighter fairway lies. there was one shot that I hit that I was kind of in front of the green. It was a mess of a hole. I hit a bad drive. My punch out didn't quite make it to the spot I needed to, so I still had a tough shot over a creek. I was blocked out from the green basically by some trees. There was a creek. Hit a poor shot there, dropped down just on the other side of the creek, and then I had to hit, a little wedge onto the green. And from where I was, the pin was tucked to the left, and there was this mound that went over, right where I had to go. Like, there was just a mound, and basically everything dropped away towards the hole, so stopping it was not going to be... I didn't think very easily. I thought I was going to have to play it way short, and I hit a nice little pitch shot with the 56. It basically hit the green, had one big bounce, and then basically kind of rolled just a little bit and stopped to the top of the hill. And a ball that I thought was going to basically roll 10 feet by the cup never made it. I was kind of shocked at how quickly it checked up, even on something there where, I knew the downhill was coming. And then I had a shot that was kind of similar but way less aggressive later on in the round and hit just a great little shot to a foot. Thankfully, my generous partners gave me the putt, but those little pitch and chip shots around the green with the 56 just work really well, and they check up really, really hard. Now, I think coming from maybe a traditional wedge into these, you may leave a few short for the first few, maybe the first round, maybe the first few holes or whatever, and then once you kind of get that feel of, I've got to carry it just a little bit farther than my previous wedge, you'll start to dial that in, and it becomes kind of second nature. But I think that a lot of people, especially when you play this thing square for those pitch and chip shots, or maybe just a hair open to add a little spin, you just get confident with it. The sole interact, like I said, the sole interacts really well. It just kind of glides through the turf, and then the spin on these things that higher CG, it gives you confidence to be a little bit more aggressive and hit those shots a little harder and a little more at the hole, and you'll rely on that spin to kind of check that thing up and keep it around the hole. And that's pretty much what I did the whole time with these things. Hit a couple little open face shots out of the rough and things like that where you're a little bit short-sighted, and those things still spun really well. I was hitting those out of the rough. I wasn't hitting anything off a tight lie with an open face, but out of the rough, the 56 performed really well. Even if you caught something, you could. To me, the biggest thing with moving all that mass high in the head, if you caught one a little high, you got under it, caught it a little high in the face, it would still come out with a good amount of spin, and you had some control over it. It still carried, where traditional wedge would probably leave that ball pretty short. It would probably just plop onto the green, and that would be it. This would carry it a little farther to the hole, have a little bit of spin, so you'd have a little bit of control on it. And that raised CG, I think, really helps with that miss if you kind of slide under the ball a touch and catch it, up high near the toe, because there's just more mass up there. But those shots worked out really well. Hit a couple out of the rough that, again, kind of hit them and just said, hey, the ball, this ball's going by 10, 12 feet. That's what I'm going to have coming back. The rough was long. It was wet. It was, we played in the morning, the dew, all that. And shots, little open face shots at the 56 and the 60 actually checked up pretty well. I definitely had shorter putts coming back than I ever thought I would. Maybe half of what I thought. I thought it was 10 feet. It might be 5. But just hit some really nice little shots. And there was one, a par 3, didn't hit a great ball. It was kind of right, and there was a bunker on the right side. I didn't quite have to carry the bunker. I was kind of just left of it. I would just have carried maybe the edge, but the pin was up front right, and I basically didn't have a whole lot of green to work with. It basically hit it onto this little mound, and it was probably going to jump left when it hit, but just get it up there, and it should get, you may roll by a little bit, but you should have a pretty easy putt coming back down. And I remember hitting it, and things checked up pretty hard, and I had basically 2 feet coming back. It was really impressive. It checked up way harder than I thought with that 60. But 56 played well. Open face out of the traps. It floated really well, but again, everything we played up here for the most part is really firm, kind of damp sand. So there wasn't. I mean, the float is no issue. You're not getting a club crazy deep in there, but the opening the face, it does add a good amount of bounce to it. So I think people who are playing a little fluffier sand or need help getting out of the traps, you're definitely going to get that out of these wedges. I had no problem getting things out. with the 56. I don't think I hit any of the 60 out of a trap. I don't think I only use that if I'm really like short-sided or there's just no green to work with. But a traditional bunker shot, I always go with sand wedge or 56 or 54, depending on what wedge setup I'm playing. But these things played really well to that firmer sand. Just it kind of hit, thud, glided through the sand really easily, especially with a little bit of an open face. It just adds a good amount of bounce to the bottom of this thing and floats through really well. And those shots were pretty simple. I think when you get to the summer and you get stuff that's a little more, a little lighter and a little more fluffy, I still think this thing's going to float through really, really well. Just the way that sole's designed when you open it up, it's going to keep a lot of that bounce there and be for a lot of players who struggle, be really easy to hit out of there. But yeah, the 56 was just really, really good. I think the only thing that it's going to suffer at is if, which for me, I don't hit this shot, but if you're somebody who takes a 56 and likes to lay it kind of really wide open on a tighter lie, a fairway lie, something like that, the leading edge does come off the ground a little bit. So there's not a ton of trailing edge relief, so you're going to see that leading edge come up a little bit. So if you're playing in like crazy firm conditions, somewhere down south or something like that, you may not love to see that leading edge come up, but up here where it's pretty lush and you can get under the ball no problem anyway, not a big issue for any of us here in Michigan. And then the lob wedge, the 59, again was something I kind of got comfortable with quick. I don't use it as much on the course. It's got to be something short-sided or something you have to go way up, but little kind of half shots, 3/4 shots off the fairway. If you came up short, had to carry a little bit of the rough or something like that to get to a pin that was tucked back right or left. It was pretty simple. Again, it was just easy to hit that shot, and while it didn't come out crazy high, it seemed to check up pretty quickly. As I mentioned, slightly open face shots out of the rough, checked up really well, held a lot of spin. It was really predictable. Again, I think with the 60, the 59, the way the sole is designed, and the only shot that you're going to be really, that you may kind of take notice to just a touch more is laying it wide open off a like fairway type lie. Just because that leading edge, much like the 56, similar sole design, it's going to come up a little bit. That leading edge is going to come up a little bit. But again, out of the trap, I think they're going to play really well. The few short-sided shots I had, I hit really well. I probably was extremely consistent with the lob wedge, which it usually takes me a couple rounds in a sense to get used to hitting some of those shots. The ball really came out easily and was it was again something that didn't really dig. You were able to kind of get the club face on the ball, not hit it too high, not slide under it. Just a lot of those things. Worked really well with the 60. I think when you look at this whole set of wedges, if you're somebody who doesn't really open faces a lot, if you play a lot of things square, the performance of these is going to be exceptional. It's one of those, they play really well, and especially square to the club. I mean, it's I don't want to call it like, people say, oh, it's a cheat code. It's not. You still got to put a decent swing on it, but I mean, the performance you're going to get out of these in terms of hitting shots with a ton of spin, a lot of control, and honestly, they go pretty straight. I mean, just thinking about it, I guess I didn't realize it was playing. My whole miss is I kind of get over the top, I get steep, I smother it, I hit it left, and I didn't see as much of that with these. I was hitting them pretty straight. There was one or two with the gap wedge that were more full shots off the fairway or just off the rough that maybe started left to target a little bit. But I do have to say, like, there wasn't near as much pulling with these as some other wedges. But there's just a lot of consistency. I think with that higher CG, you just see a lot of consistency with balls between, from different lies, whether you're hitting it off the fairway, whether you're hitting out of the rough, out of the sand, all that stuff. That upper CG, I think, just adds a lot of consistency. And even if it's shot that's not struck perfect, you can still get away with it, and you can still kind of predict where that ball is going to be, and still be on the green. Where maybe some other shots you'd slide into the ball, hit it high on the toe, and it falls back into the rough, and you're chipping again. I mean, that's brutal. If you can at least get it on the green, hey, at least you got a shot at making par or something like that to make a little longer putt. But these things were really consistent, and they perform really well. So I think Terry there is designed a really nice wedge, and I think the only person who may not love the lob wedge guys who like to play crazy wide open flop shots, but if you can open the face a little bit still, hit some pretty high spinning shots, it can still do that. But they're really solid, and I think, as a set, they work really well, and they give you some consistency from wedge to wedge that you can kind of get comfortable with and dial in. So, and overall, they're a good looking wedge. They're pretty simple. I mean, you got your Edison 2.0 in the back, your 5x forged, and then that's about it. They're not crazy adorned. They don't have a ton of stuff going on. They're pretty darn simple, and they feel good. So, I mean, everything about them really, really solid. So, if you're looking for new wedges, you want to try something new, definitely the Edison 2.0s. If you go to edisonwedges.com, got all the information, all the details, all there. They have a ton of info on their site in terms of what they do and why they do the things that they do, why this head is designed the way it is. So, very cool, and great wedges. I was pretty impressed. Like I said, I never really got to hit the first ones, but the 2.0s are really, really nice. So, again, if you're looking for wedges, you're looking for something where, hey, I'm looking for something different, I need some help, whatever, edisonwedges.com. Check out the whole thing. And I think they run wedges from, I want to say you can get anything from, basically a 45 down to a 60 or 61 or something like that. I think you can add a couple degrees to a 59. So, you can dial in pretty much anything, whatever your gapping is, and I think they even have a little deal on if you're doing, a single wedge, or if you're doing, a 3-wedge set, 4-wedge set, if you're going to, replace the pitching wedge or something like that. So they kind of can dial you in, and then they have a cool little wedge fit program as well. You just answer a few questions, and it's actually a little more in depth than what than your usual thing of what do you hit your 50 your 56 degree or whatever. It's got a lot more questions than that, so it's pretty in depth, and they can kind of get you dialed in and fit right online. So. Very cool, but glad I got to hit them because they were definitely something that was pretty cool and fun to hit, and they performed really well. So I do have to say, if you're looking for new wedges, give them a whirl. And I think that's all I've got. Hopefully today I'm going to try to do my my live Q&A. I know I didn't do it today or yesterday, Wednesday, because I just didn't. I didn't have time. Daughter's birthday, all that jazz, just too much going on. But if you want to ask questions about shafts, clubs, whatever you got, at Club Junkie Pod. And then if you're watching, wherever you're listening to this podcast-wise, please like, subscribe, do whatever. And then if you're watching this on YouTube or want to, search Golf Through Barracks Radio, and it is there. And we appreciate, the subscribing, all that as well. So, the bigger we can kind of grow that, the more clubs people will send me, and then the more stuff I can talk about. So, but appreciate anybody who listens. Hopefully you guys have a great weekend, great rest of your week. Hopefully you play some golf, and we'll chat it up next week.